welcome to We're Not Wizards. We are the best, but not wizards. Enjoy the show!
Welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard.
My name's Luke.
And
do I get to go? My name's Dan.
You do. There you go.
I wasn't messed it up.
No, you didn't.
I messed it up already.
Yeah, you just walked in.
You just like what? You just turned up. It's like we're about to start a friendly game of backgammon, and then because we're gonna talk about a couple of things. I was going to start off with a little song, that little kind of, we're on the chair right there, a little Dan with his beard and his 2 published games. Go and clippity clop on the stair. And that's all you get, Mr. Hughes.
And published book. But one of the published games you're talking about, one of the games you're talking about was an expansion, so I'm not sure it counts as two games.
It counts. Like
there was plenty in there. It was it was more than enough in there.
Chock-a-block it was. Chock-a-block with content.
It was.
Watch it.
Half the price.
Watch it. We don't want to upset our American listeners.
Chock-a-block? That's not... Do they have chock ices in America? Do they call them chock ices? Luke, you're our American expert. Do they have chock ices in America?
I don't think they do. No, they must.
One.
They must do.
I call them ice cream bars.
I don't think they call it a chock ice.
They call it like an ice cream bar or something like that. They call it an ice cream bar and they cover it in chocolate. And
they don't have 99s though, do they? The poor devils.
No.
Was screwballs a thing in down south and up north?
So is that the 99 in a little plastic cone with a bubblegum thing at the bottom?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I
don't think we
had
it north. We never had it north of the wall.
No. All Scottish treats are all basically.
Here we go.
Poverty.
Here
rations,
we go.
Aren't they?
He's winding up his arm. Come on then.
They are. Tablet. Tablet.
I'm sorry. Tablet's fabulous. It is.
I'm not saying
it is poor man's fudge. It's poor man's fudge, but it's bloody fabulous.
It's like one of those fat balls you leave out for the birds. Is what it is.
Do you know how easy it is to how much of an easy mistake it is to make tablet? It's like somebody that's. I'm pretty sure tablet was invented by somebody making sugary tea and forgetting to put the tea bag in, and then just having this thing stewing for like ages, and then going. I've had 15 sugars in my cup of tea and my milk, but I forgot to put my tea bag in, and now it tastes like the best thing, best thing ever.
I didn't have milk, so I used condensed milk,
And then
because we had a tin of it at the back of the cupboard.
Yeah, exactly. And you get the Scottish bread that everyone brings back. That Scottish bread that just tastes like stale bread, basically.
I don't think I've had Scottish bread.
It's probably stale bread. You've probably taken something off the shelf, which is like a day to go.
My wife's family is Scottish, and she always brings back some of this special Scottish bread, and it's basically stuff you could use to build things with.
She goes up there for 2 weeks to see the family, and she buys it for you at the beginning of the holiday.
Listen,
it comes back, it's like dwarf bread.
Right, I'm going to text my wife, and we'll get a response.
Find out
by
what
the
this
end
is.
of the podcast.
I can't think what you're talking about. When you say it, I might go.
Well,
oh right. When you said Scottish bread, I thought you meant shortbread because it's always in a bloody tartan tin.
Well, shortbread, I'm not a fan of that either.
How? Oh right, okay. How are you not a fan?
How
of
can you not like short? Yeah, how can you not like
tablet? How can you not? I thought you were going to come in and say, the popular kind of dessert that they have in Scotland is deep fried Mars bars. I thought you were going to rock up with that.
No, that's a stereotype. That I wouldn't be going along with that.
But tablet and shortbread, that's not stereotypical at all. That's good.
He didn't say shortbread, to be fair.
It's less of a lazy joke, isn't it? It's less of a lazy joke than deep fried Mars bars. This is very region specific. I hope you haven't got any American listeners.
I think the majority.
I think even the Americans think that the Scottish deep fry everything. I think even they're aware of this stereotype.
Yeah, but they won't know what tablet is, will they? I imagine most English people won't know what tablet is.
No, for the everybody who doesn't know what tablet is, it's kind of like classic sort of English fudge, but it's kind of crumbly and it's got this sort of almost melts in your mouth kind of texture about it, but it's got the kind of similar flavour to it. It's essentially caramelized sugar and milk and a sort of dairy thing of some sort, but I
think milk's going with that. It's condensed milk, isn't it?
I think it is condensed
real
milk. Yes, yeah.
Mother's
I
Pride
use a bit
plain loaf.
Mother's Pride isn't
Mother's Pride plain.
That's not stale bread. That's normal Scottish bread. No, it's not.
It is by the time it gets to Dan, it's stale bread.
What kind of bread do you have down in England,
plain.
You got cloud bread in England. No. It's just too fresh.
Nice and fluffy and light, not the big solid lump of
looking up
congealed flour that you get up in Scotland.
There's an old Scottish kind of semi-nursery rhyme kind of song that goes, "Oh, you canny chuck is a jammy piece off a 20-story flat. 100,000 hungry wains would testify to that." And it is literally about in Glasgow time during the tenements time. Then what would happen was that at lunchtime when the kids were outside playing, because it was impossible to get kids indoors in those days, is at lunchtime what the mums would generally do is they would wrap up a sandwich in in a bag, a plastic bag or something like that, and they would chuck it out the window of the flat in the hope that the kids would catch it, and that was what they would do. And of course, a lot of the time, he just ended up in an absolute mess. So,
I was going to say, if it's one of that Mother's Pride one, it would knock someone, you could kill someone with that, throwing that out.
It's probably, that's probably meant to like one of those Pride. Yeah. Don't do that.
It does look like a normal white loaf.
Okay. Next time, Luke, I'm going to try and get you some Mother's Pride.
It's only £1.65 for a bloody loaf of it. It's the same as my hostess.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it is
weighs £1.65. That's what you're mistaking it for.
You're lucky you're not charged per tonne, because you'd be paying an absolute fortune. Yeah. It's almost right up there with gold. You know, but around the bottom of the tenement buildings, there'd be little craters where the Mother's Pride had hit. Little craters where
terminal the reason you don't get it down where you are the reason you don't get it down where you are, Luke, is the postage is too high. It's too heavy. That's why.
It's true, yeah.
Royal Mail's like, we're not shipping that.
Yeah.
You can't ship it. It can be palletised.
That's dangerous goods, isn't it? That's basically the way that they see it, dangerous goods.
Mother's Pride. There you go.
I
think I've learnt something today. I've learned of a brand of bread. That's
that's what you can
that's
add.
what
That's
I've
what you can add to yourself. Speaking of brands, speaking of brands that continually expanding, and if they hit you from a great height, they would kill you outright. Mark Cook and Airecon. Because if he hit you at a great height, because he's at a great height already.
He's a big so
bugger. I'm assuming if he hit you, you'd end up like a tiny crater at the bottom of a Glasgow tenement. My sources tell me that Airecon's just happened, and you were both present at Airecon. So how did you get on?
We were. I was at the Airecon. Luke was at Airecon longer than I was.
Oh right.
I just went for the day.
But I spent that day with Dan.
Yeah,
did you?
And that's why I left after a day, mainly.
So he booked in for 3 nights at the hotel and he just went, fuck it. I'm not putting up with any more of this shit.
Exactly.
It's too much. It's too much. Just psychologically exhausted.
I only stayed for an hour.
How many times, right? I'm questioning, right? When you were playing games with Luke, how many times did he make any kind of analogy or movement where it ended up him showing off the guns? I mean, was he kind of like, the toilets are here and here? Or would you want me to pick up the game board from down there?
He was flexing. It was like playing a game with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Did he get his get to the chopper?
Who's going to time?
Kept lifting up heavy things.
Was he?
Yeah.
What is it? Is it because Was it good fun then? Was it nice to be back in front of each other? Because do you not see each other on a regular basis anyway?
We did. We haven't for a while though, have we? Yeah.
No, it was a short period of time where we kind of met in Nottingham alongside Matthew, Jude, and Sean from the Game Pit. But that's his last name, by the way, from the Game Pit. But that kind of went by the way. That COVID killed that, didn't it? I think
it did. Yeah, I was gonna say,
and then we never got,
as so many things did.
Yeah,
didn't.
And we've never done it
COVID.
again. Although I did go around to Sean's house, but Luke wasn't there, and you went around to Sean's house once, and I wasn't there. Yeah. We were meeting up every 3 months or so. Yeah, I think. But it was good. It was good to be to see people. Good to see everybody. Really, it was nice to socialise a little bit. Only for a day, but I
spent most of the weekend with Gary King, which was really nice.
Yeah, he's good man. Is Gary King?
He's a bloody good lad.
He's a gentleman and a scholar among illustrators. So I've been told.
He is.
He's a class man, directly involved in CoraQuest, which is available from most good shops now. Isn't that right?
Yeah, although the expansion isn't yet, which is annoying. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why it takes so long from when the board game's manufactured and delivered to the distributor before the distributor sends it out to board game shops. People are emailing me all the time saying, where can I get the expansion? I was like, I don't know. It should have been there 2 months ago. It's exactly the same thing happened with the base game, so I don't know what's going on there.
Give him Mark's email address. It's his problem.
Yeah. Well, I know. But all my emails to Mark bounce, so I can't.
He finally blocked.
He's got me blocked.
That's not very, very nice. What did you play when you were at Airecon together? Was that a big ton?
The first game we played.
Yes.
Dan showed me the new and improved. I've seen the right from the very start. Well, certainly to the first time that Dan put it out into the public under public eyes. The up and coming mixtape by Dan Hughes and Mike Delisio. Yeah. And I saw I think will probably be the. I don't know if you're going to be able to develop it much more because it's not like to be fair, you have it's a pretty chunky changes to it since the very first iteration, but then since then it's been tweaks and little nudges and you know, but really nice, really. I felt like I was playing. Because to be fair, the prototype was actually very nice as well. I felt like I was playing a proper game. There wasn't any sort of like, I could, I'll allow for that little thing or whatever. It felt proper and finished and polished.
Yeah. Well, we think it's done, but then again, we thought it's done before, and then we've changed it. So who knows? But yeah, we think it's done. This is a card game, a drafting game that myself and Mike Delisio off of the Dice Tower have been making for the past 2 years, and it's about basically making a mixtape. Ultimately, that's what it's about. A cassette mixtape, and yeah, we're looking for a publisher right now. So if you're a publisher, listen to this, then contact Mike Delisio because I'm trying to push it. All
publishers listen to this.
I'm trying to push it towards Mike to sort that side of things, which he's gladly taking on, but he's got the contacts and stuff like that. So
how different was the development journey between CoraQuest and the mixtape? Was there a big difference between the two? Because it sounded like mixtapes taking an awful lot longer to kind of put together.
Yeah.
Whereas CoraQuest, you seem to have the kind of the bare bones ready from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, with one of them, I was working with someone who's really kind of immature, needed a lot of guidance and stuff like that. And then the other one I was doing with my daughter. So.
But it was beautiful. I appreciated it happening. Yeah.
But it has been different, but mainly because CoraQuest was kind of came out the pandemic where we were just where it was a real focus of attention and a way of really focusing my attention, Cora's attention, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Whereas mixtape has been something I've been doing around the edges, so it's been, I'd say, probably roughly equal amounts of development work have gone into it. It's been stretched over a much longer period of time.
Yeah.
Plus, there's the difficulties of time zones and not seeing people in person, all that kind of stuff, which obviously didn't happen with Core Request. So do you know, surprisingly enough, I think they're quite similar. I think the process is a relatively similar thing, which is as I keep saying, make a really bad game and then make it better is ultimately how it's been. So Core and I came up with a game that worked okay just for us, and then we made it better. And similarly with Mixtape, we came up with a kind of kernel of an idea of a game, and then through playtesting and chatting and, 2 o'clock in the morning, you kind of go, oh, what about this? And then you text it to Mike, and then it's kind of gone in flurries.
You've had little moments of epiphanies, haven't you? And stuff like that.
Yeah. Loads of little kind of sparks of epiphany, really. So, and sometimes taking playtesters' opinions on board, but also sometimes trying to ignore playtesters' opinions as much as humanly possible. Because one thing that playtesters want to do is add more rules to your game. I don't anyone who's designed a game will know this, but they just want to add more and more complications. I think you should do this. It's like, but if we did everything that everyone thinks you should do, the rule book would be encyclopedic.
Mixtape needs minis. I'm going to say it again, Dan. If it had miniatures in it, it would be, Probably keep saying it's not a good idea, but I think,
Exactly. If you put it on Kickstarter, it'd probably end up with minis, I tell you. I think that's the only way to...
You'd actually be putting physical cassettes down.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I like the idea of little
pleasing.
minis. I like the idea of little miniature cassette tapes that kind of... I think that'd be quite cool. I've not seen that in a while, but you'd also
bet somewhere makes them as well. I bet you could repurpose some that are already made. Do you know what I mean? There'll be
shells. Yeah, shell of
Well, the original idea for the game was that it was going to be enough cards that you could fit inside a cassette shell, so we would sell it within a shell of a cassette tape.
Yeah.
But it kind of... We realised that by limiting it was really useful to limit ourselves initially when we were doing that, but as time went on, that limitation was becoming exactly that, a limitation rather than something useful to work towards. So we just abandoned it.
I just had a little momentary thought. You may have even had the thought yourself. You know what the box now should be? It should look like a Walkman. And then inside should be 2 little tuck boxes that are with artwork of cassettes on them. Or actually, no, because the cards will be in there and they've got cassettes on them. So
hopefully we'll have some input with that, and but hopefully someone else will be responsible for all the art this time.
Are you still going for Mr. King, or has he done his apprenticeship?
We want to do Mr. King, but it ultimately, because we made... Basically, I made the decision that I don't think I could put myself through a Kickstarter again. And also that I'm not convinced that small games are very good on Kickstarter, because the amount of postage, that postage costs, I'm not talking about shipping postage to hubs, I'm talking about from the hubs to the customer, is outrageous, to be honest. I mean, the shipping for Core Quest basically cost us as much, significantly more than the game ever cost us, and the amount we had to subsidise, especially the expansion we just put out, the postage on there to make it even vaguely reasonable would mean that for a even smaller game like Mixtape, we'd have to, I don't know how we'd do the postage without people saying, I'm not paying twice the cost of the game to post it out to me. So that's just my feeling. I mean, who knows? Never say never. I'm slightly less traumatized by the Kickstarter experience than I was when we were first discussing it. But so art wise, ideally we'd love Gary to come on, and he was working with us for a while on it. But if you're looking at a publisher, you can't be insisting on who the artist is.
I suppose
we would be suggesting Gary as a perfect person to work with rather than insisting on it. If that makes any sense.
Luckily, there's also not a huge amount of artwork in it as such, is there?
No.
The box would be probably one of the more artistic aspects of it in many ways, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the box and some pictures of cassettes. But yeah, sorry, it wasn't meant to be a plug for my stuff. It was meant to be.
Oh, be quiet.
You were meant to be asking what we were playing at Airecon.
But I do have. I have one more question in relation to the thing, which is one of the things that came out pretty quick from the beginning I've got my serious kind of interviewers head on today, and I've no
I'm a
idea.
serious guy.
You are a serious guy. Can you stop armpit farting, please?
I'm very deep. I've never been able to armpit fart. It's been one of the things.
Me neither.
It's hair. We've had this discussion.
Seems
before.
unfair that a big fella. Oh yeah, we did have this discussion.
This
This is the second time we've had this discussion.
I'm
disappointed. I've missed this conversation.
You can go per kind of like percussions and stuff like that.
Can you do thigh? Anyone been able to do thigh?
You could
farting.
That's
what I
didn't even know this was a thing.
You could
me, but I'm just thinking.
I'll be spending my week doing.
Yeah.
Work in conferences. Why is your leg
That's it.
almost up near your neck? Because listen to this. Doing the Johnny Briggs theme tune. There you go. There's something. There's something the Americans won't understand.
I went to A-level college with the girl who said my mum who's a nurse in Johnny Briggs.
Oh wow.
Her name was Sophie. So there you go.
that's Molly Sugden's bridesmaid moment, if I had heard one. Anyway, but my question was, before we get it, because this is going to be a thing full of sidetracks, I'm going to feel like I'm playing Dragon's Dogma 2. Obviously, when you're creating something like a music-based game, and you're basing it around certain music, then there's obviously the question about the band names. Now, I remember an old Spectrum game called Rockstar Ate My Hamster, where they parodied the kind of the band names. You knew who they were talking about, but they didn't actually use the band names in order to prevent them from getting sued. So are you doing the same with Are you doing the same with mixtape, or how are you approaching that?
Again, it would be a publisher type thing, but... Mm-hmm. When we were thinking about, I mean, we might never get it published as well. By the way, not assuming anything. But as far as I can make out with my legal research, which granted is Google, you can't copyright a band name and you can't copyright a song name. You can copyright the lyrics and the tune, but you can't copyright. And if you think about it, Trivial Pursuit is full of band names and song names and all that kind of stuff.
Every trivia game, like
books frequently mention Britney Spears. All this kind of stuff. So you can use them as long as it's not mistaken that you're endorsed by them or acting on behalf of them.
That makes sense.
Now, it'd be a fine line. It might be walking the line a little bit by putting a game out with all these band names, because basically the game is you're picking tracks to go into a mixtape, basically. So at the moment we're using real band names and real track names.
Yeah. And
I don't think anyone would assume that we would that we were affiliated with In Excess or whoever, Motley Crue. But the other thing is, if you get sued, it doesn't matter if you're in the right or wrong, because we don't have any money to defend that. So we'd have to do a stop. In a cease and desist, we would stop rather than fighting it. Yeah. So it's how likely it would be that would happen. But if you think of Time's Up, that's full of
it's good. I had
film names, actors' names, band names, that kind of stuff. And as I say, the research I've done on the internet suggests that this is not legal advice, by the way. This is not legal advice. I'm happy to give legal advice, though. Just email me and I'll give it.
That's a mental health practitioner.
Yeah. And financial advice, I'm happy to give that as well. So anyone who's out there just wants to message me about the stocks and shares, I'm more than happy to do that. But yeah, so I think legally you're okay. Yeah. And I don't think you'd get in trouble, especially not if we did do it by Kickstarter. It'd be a relatively small Kickstarter with maybe, if we were lucky, 1,000, 2,000 backers. If we were lucky, I can't see the vast, Phil Collins estate coming down on us too hard after that. But yeah,
I thought it's always a good thing if like a bit of publicity. I mean, I always find that 19.
I mean, I'd lose my house, but yeah.
I mean, 19 it's a sacrifice.
But you get 40 more backers,
40 more backers.
I mean,
40 more backers, lost your house.
50 pence a backer. I mean, what's that? 20 quid? I mean, it's like it's a win-win. It's a win-win kind of situation. So apart from, so I made you a plug tape.
The two my 2 games of the convention were both games I played with Dan, despite of Dan, which
because
says
of
something.
me.
All right. I want to hear this.
In spite of Dan.
Despite.
The first one I mentioned is a cracking game that's only probably just landing in people's laps at the moment. Is a little card game called Far Away. And it just does something a little bit different to other card games, and it's kind of a bit of a wolf in sheepskin clothing. In that it looks just nice, and it just looks like it's just a fun little card game, but actually it's a real head scratcher and stuff. So you're in this mythical land, and you're somebody going on a journey, and you're going to end up laying out 8 cards, which on those cards there'll be a variety of the land type, and then there's these 3 kind of symbols that you will often score based on said symbols. So you're sort of mapping out that journey, but then what you do is, once you get to the end of the 8, you flip them all over, and you start at the end and work your way backwards, scoring as you reveal the cards. So if you've got like the 3rd card coming back is X amount of points per this symbol, you'll have had to have revealed it in the previous 2 cards to score any points. So you have to do this real kind of weird backwards thinking that it's very much a game that you have to play the first time to go, right, I get it now. I'm fully on board with how this thing works. And yeah, it just works so well. I just absolutely love it. I think it's brilliant.
It is great. You've got to realise that luck plays a significant part in it.
It definitely does. Yes.
Because if you're somebody who doesn't like any luck in their game, then you're going to have a bad time because basically you're planning for events that you don't know if they're going to happen or not. You're just hoping they're going to happen. And there's drafting and things. And there's stuff you can do to try and mitigate stuff. But basically, the most skilled player probably is going to win, but there's going to be a great deal of luck, and you could just be unstuck by the fact that the card you wanted didn't come out. But it is really, really interesting, and it's something I've never seen really before. I mean, at its heart, it's a very simple tableau builder where you're scoring depending on what else you put down, but it's this backwards and forwards thing that is really fascinating. Plus, it's only like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it looks. It's nice. It's about 17 quid or something as well. It's very expensive.
It's a Hachette game, isn't it? And Hachette tend to price their games very reasonably, I find. Especially these little small games. Valabara was another one, one I really love, which again it's not the same, but yeah, nice and cheap. Yeah.
No, Valabara.
I know it's Hachette because I played it because I've got an in with Hachette.
Oh, Flav.
He played it well before anybody played it. He played it before Flavian played it. That's how in he is with Flavian. He's playing the games before
Flavian's played it.
I told Flav about it, to be absolutely honest. Yeah.
You at the board. You were at the Hachette board
Flav
meeting.
And
you
Flav runs the games
Flav
past Dan. Yeah.
That's what happens.
He does.
I imagine that could
his
be the same.
whole business strategy and his family's livelihood is built on the opinion of Dan Hughes.
Yeah. No, occasionally I go around to Flav's house, who runs Hachette UK, and you should have him on the podcast.
I should.
And he is very kind enough to show me some of the stuff that he's got upcoming in his catalogue. That's how I knew.
Is there stuff that when you leave his house, you can't you're like, oh, I can't even say about this. I can't even talk about this game. It's like news and exclusives and stuff like that.
That's only happened once, and it was a game that I really didn't like anyway, so I wasn't going to talk about it. But I got told that I wasn't allowed to talk about it.
What one was it?
I don't think it's done anything. I think it's something without trace. It's a weird kind of pearl diver thing where you know that game we used to play in school where you got a grid, a graph paper rather, and each of you takes it in turns to cross.
That is coming out, isn't it?
Oh, is it? It's rubbish.
Somebody gave that exact description of it. I think I must have been on Dice Tower. I must have seen it. I think that is coming out. It's really good.
I didn't like it. No.
There you go.
But I like enough of Flav's games to be able to feel comfortable in saying when
I
think some's a pants.
Going back to what you were saying, like with the price and the general hits that they will be, the win rate. When I was I think it was the last day, I was sat with Gary and he went, "Oh, I've just got to dash off because he wanted to get something from Flabs." And I was like, "Oh, what are you getting?" And he gave a very quick description of this game. He said, "It's only a tenner. I think it'll be really good fun." I just handed him a tenner and went, "Get me a copy." I still haven't even opened it yet. I was like, "There's a good chance it'll be at least fun."
It's a tenner.
What is it?
It's to do with like it's a semi co-op.
All right.
Which I say with trepidation, but
you're a pill diver.
Survivors,
it's like that graph paper.
But your survivors, I think, you're like stranded survivors on an island, and you kind of like collecting all the like resources and stuff. But then slowly the resources start running out, so then you start backstabbing each other to get the resources and stuff. So it doesn't sound like a Dan Hughes game.
Is it Halapagus? Is it Halapagus?
That's it.
Yeah, Halapagus is good fun. And you're right. It's one of these things that can play multiple amounts of people as well. But it's a good fun game.
It's
one of these.
Like a good crack.
It's got a good framework, and then afterwards you can end up turning on the kind of the backstabbers. But you said that was the first game was Far Away, which I'm looking at. It looks like lovely. That's what I was looking at. What's the second game?
Yeah, the other game that was my game at the convention, which I had just picked up my copy at the convention because I'd always heard good things about it, and then Dan happened to bring his. So very gladly he taught it. Well, I say gladly he taught it. Thankfully,
and you say taught it as well. I stumbled my way through the
absolutely fine.
See, can we just stop for a second, right? Because I remember having this conversation with you a couple of times about teaching games. And you always come out and say, I'm not there's a struggle to do, and everybody's like, and he teaches games perfectly well, and he takes his time, and he's patient.
Maybe.
You're very good. You're very good at it. You're kind of a reluctant kind of Rodney Smith, basically. I would say.
I'm very good at everything I do, Richard. That's the problem. Just because I'm very good at it doesn't mean I enjoy it. That's the.
That's too true. Anyway, this other game you're talking about.
Skate Summer.
Oh.
From Pandasaurus Games, I think. I think it's Pandasaurus.
Yeah.
Which is it's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater meets Jet Set Radio kind of vibe that it's trying to go with.
Lovely.
And you've got this very colourful map, this sort of hex grid map of this city, and you've got a skateboard in front of you, and you're laying out your tricks, and you keep laying one more trick, but all the time your tricks will cause your balance. Yeah. And this push your luck dice roll aspect of it will cause your balance to lean left or lean right, and you're using your cards to keep yourself in the middle. But then the more tricks you the next trick and the next trick and the next trick means you roll more dice, which will send your balance one way or another. And it's nice because it's push your luck, but it's not one of these ones where it's I pushed my luck too far, I bust. You don't just go, "Oh, that's my turn over, I'm screwed." You just go, "Oh, okay, I lose this and I lose this little bit. I'll still get to do most of what I plan to do, in the turn," kind of thing.
And it uses push your luck as a mechanism within a wider game rather than just push your luck as the whole game.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is quite unusual for push your luck. I mean, it happens all the time these days with deck building and all that kind of stuff. But it's a similar type of thing as in the deck building as in Ruins of Arnak or whatever. It's part of the game, but it's not the whole game. And so the push your luck is at the centre of the game, but it's not the whole game. And there's this whole other thing about driving around and picking up stuff. The only downside of it is it's got lots of chits, and it's a bit of a pain in the bottom to store, set up, and put away.
It's a little bit of there's lots of little tokens and stuff like that. Which, to be fair, I played it again on came back from Airecon on the weekend and I played it again on the Wednesday with two of my friends, and I kind of just got on with it and just kind of did it quite well. I did kind of like I think you did. I set my little player board up and handed them their bag of things and went, right, copy that while I do this, and then quickly went dig 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 and put all the chits out on the board. So it wasn't bad. It was kind of I know because I knew that there was quite a lot to do. I kind of just cracked on with it rather than we were chatting and I kind of just got on with it and got it done. but they loved it as well. It's just a fabulous little game. And I also played it again the next day, Dan, with Matthew Jude. I played it on the day after at Airecon, and Matthew had kind of always seen it, and he said, "Yeah, I just kind of looked at it and never gave it really a second glance," which is exactly what I did. He said, "Oh, the theme doesn't mean anything to me. I don't particularly care." And so I said, "Well, do you want to try it?" And then Gary joined us again as well, and he just absolutely loved it. And he said it was his game of the convention as well. He just thought he just blew him away as to how good it was, and it is just brilliant. It's just such a great little game.
It is interesting, and it's not really done anything, has it? Mike was the one. Mike Delisio. I played that with him in over in Dice Tower Retreat. That's where I first played it, and then I went away and bought it. So it's good. It's a good game.
I'm always surprised that they don't kind of instruct you on how to organise the components per player, because a number of times, and I'm trying to remember, I've done this with quite a few games, Scythe and Viticulture, and there was one by Elzra I did quite recently, where I've ended up kind of instead of organising the components based on where it says in the instruction manual to put it, I've ended up organising the components based on basically being able to hand a bag to the player and saying, there you go, that's how you set up. I've did it quite recently. Dungeon Saga Origins, I did that quite recently, just basically a couple of chits and stuff like that, just to say, look, that's everything you need for that particular character, and it just makes the setup a hell of a lot easier. And I always get confused by games that don't do that.
That's how I've now got Skate Summer set up, and obviously that's what Luke just basically copied off me. Same as yours.
No, to be fair, the person who I bought it from had done exactly that. Okay, it was all bagged up that way.
The problem with Skate Summer as well, I think, is it could have been done with being a £5 or £10 more expensive game, and it's one of the few games where I think actually no, you should have just deluxified it a little bit. You should have had the dual layer player boards. You should have had some cubes and stuff to put in these little slots,
a few little bits
instead of cardboard chits. I'm usually a big fan of things being as cheap as possible, but this one I'm like, actually no, the fiddliness is taking away from the usability of the game here. But we also played some other games. We also played my two games at the con. One of which was World Wonders. Have you played that, Richard?
No, I haven't, but Mr. Pryor has been going on about it. In fact, was that not part of your top 10 of last year?
It was one of my top 10 games of last year. Yeah,
top 10 games of last year. So
I certainly think it would probably place there if I could be bothered doing a list like that. It was it's probably the best Polyonymo game I've ever played, I'd say.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, really. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of Polyonymo games, if I'm honest, but it was really, really interesting. So if he's been on about that, I won't go on about it again.
No.
Please.
It's always interesting to get somebody's opinion on something like this. Yeah, absolutely.
It was just good. It had some great interaction. It had some really kind of thinking type stuff. There's a wonderful mechanic in it, which I'm sure Luke's talked about, where you have to wait. You have to decide when you're going to go. There's these world wonders basically you're getting, and you've got limited amount of actions. They call it money, but it's actions. And if you go for one of these world wonders, that's your turnover. You spend all your actions on getting this thing. So it doesn't matter if you've got 7 actions left or 1 action left. You can spend it all and get one of these world wonders. And there's always some competition for it. So you can very easily see on other people's boards what they're likely to be wanting and things like that. So there's that kind of really interesting tension of, I really want that. I know Luke really wants that. Do I sacrifice
is he quite
the rest
ready
of my
for
turn
it?
in order to get it?
Yeah.
Or do I leave it and hope that Luke doesn't, and hope I can get it for as cheap as possible? So that kind of efficiency versus expediency type.
Yeah. And also there's enough stuff that the other person who you're sitting there thinking, I know that they're looking at getting the pyramids as well, and you one of the things we said it when we were there, your board that you're building your little city with it's it's quite a mess in a way. There's a hell of a lot of stuff on it. You've got all these different shaped buildings with all these different shaped colour resources on them, and you've got little roads that you've laid out, and nobody's board looks remotely like anybody else's. Then you've got these 3D wonders that kind of should block you from seeing half of the stuff on there. But you could so quickly sit there and go, right, okay, I want to get the pyramids. So I could just glance over at Dan's board on the other side of the table and know instantly whether he can do it, is going to go for it, or if he needs one more thing. So it surprises me, and I don't really understand how they've managed to do it. And I'll be honest, I think they probably lucked into it somehow, or it's extremely good graphic design, one of the two. But it's, but equally, there's so many other things that you could be getting, or looking for that even if they are ready to get it. You're looking at it thinking, well, yeah, but they've got 5 points left, so they might be going for that or that room or that tile or that tile. So I might have one more turn that I could push my luck and just do another thing and get it even cheaper, sort of thing. So yeah, it's I bought
really
my copy off Sean from the Game Pit at the Airecon West because he said it was fine.
That's his surname.
Yeah,
it is his surname.
Absolutely is his surname.
Along with his cousin Ronan from the Game Pit.
Yeah, Ronan from the Game Pit. Yeah, and he said he said it was. He just thought it was fine. It was an okay game.
Well, he's talking out of his.
Yeah, I mean, but I think it's a real gem. An absolute gem.
I went out and bought it straight away. And the other thing is, and again, this goes back to what I just said before. It's actually quite cheap. It's £40, but for 40, there's a lot of. Yeah. It's a solid £40 game. You get enough game in there, but component wise, they could have gone really silly. They could have taken it to Kickstarter and done all massive plastic blah 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 and all this kind of stuff. They could have easily charged £100 for it.
But they already had Foundations of Rome, so
I know. I don't approve of that. Anyway, whatever. Not that I've played Foundations of Rome. It could be a great game, but from what I understand, it's a great, relatively light game that costs £150. It's like I'm not sure how consumer friendly that is.
The tagline should be Foundations of Rome, the most accessible game with the most inaccessible price.
Yeah, there you go.
That's how you sell a game.
I'm not reassuringly expensive. It works for Stella.
The Stella Artois of that's exactly. Probably not good. It's what you just pick up the board and then start hitting people with it because the components are so.
Well, in America, Stella Artois is seen as quite sophisticated. It's not got the reputation it has in the UK. So
what does that tell
so
you
might
about
be all right.
Americans?
Indeed. And the other thing that we played, and I'm sorry to go on, is Veil of Eternity. Which was a really interesting game.
Have a look at this.
And it's described to me as a bit like Seasons, and it is for some reason. It's not got no dice or anything like that, but it has that same kind of, almost the same kind of artwork, but also
I was going to say
but the same kind of. You have a multitude of options on some cards, and you work out how to use those best, basically. And that possibly would have been my game at the con, and I would have bought that one if it didn't have quite so many take that cards in it. And I think it's got too much take that, and I think it's unnecessary. Not that there was a lot of take that in our game, but that's probably because everyone was playing with me, and they knew I'd sulk if anyone took that on me.
I would like to point out. Well, right. I would like to point out that the take that was in our game, came from Dan.
Only once, and that was on the last turn. And I said I won't do that part. I'll just do this part. True. And you said
you actually just didn't do it. Yeah, you didn't want to do it. Yeah,
but it's an engine building game that someone can come over and say, "I'm going to kick over this bit of your engine," and I really. I've said this on a Far Superior podcast quite recently. Which I'm still in the process of editing, but it feels very much like engine building and take that are two different mechanics which don't gel well together, because the satisfaction people get from engine building is doesn't go well with having their plans ruined, because that just takes away all that satisfaction from engine building. We didn't do any take that, and you could easily not do. No. But I just wish the cards weren't there, because all it takes is some pillock who decides they want to be captain take that, and then that would ruin the game for everybody. And I'm hoping that if they do some expansions, then they'll have some kind of option where there's no take that. You know, you'll get enough cards. So because that's the other thing with this game, you use every card. Well, we use basically every single card in the deck. So it's not like you would. Sometimes they wouldn't come out. But with an expansion, you might get more cards, which means you could ignore you could surreptitiously lose the take that cards from the deck. So if it comes out with an expansion like that, I might be tempted to buy it. But as it stands, I could see me having some very bad games of it when playing with certain individuals, and so I've decided against purchasing it.
Have either of you ever played Unfair?
I've heard of it. I've heard of it a lot, and I've heard it's very Marmite-y.
Yeah, well, the trouble is, it's a cool game about building a theme park, and it, despite the fact it fully leans into the nature of itself, it's called Unfair because you build your theme park and there's just stupid amounts of take that in it, and it's just, you know, here's my sandcastle, isn't it cool? You know, and somebody just comes on and goes, yeah, and kicks it over, but. Just because you've lent into the fact that it's really nasty and unfair and take that doesn't make that fun, you know. And it's because, especially coupled with the idea of like, oh, cool, look, I built a cool theme park. That doesn't need that's not something that you should do that then somebody should destroy, you know, kind of thing. That those two don't mix together, you know, kind of thing.
I don't mind. I was going to say, I don't mind taking that as a
person. Shut up, Richard, I'm talking. You need to be a certain type of person. I think you have to be somebody who doesn't care about the stuff they've built and gets enjoyment out of ruining other people's. And that kind of person is a psychopath, ladies and gentlemen. That kind of person is a psychopath.
That's coming from a mental health practitioner who knows the clinical definition.
I was going to, oh, for goodness sake, be quiet. I was going to say, eventually, that I don't mind take that as long as you've got a way of coming back from it. As in, if somebody says, okay, I'm playing this and I'm taking this away from you. If there's a mechanism that instantly allows you to get kind of like some reward that allows you to be easy for you to build yourself back up again, then I'm all for that. But if you want to play a take that game, you might as well go all out with, you know, a proper kind of card battler or something like that, where you're actively kind of try to take somebody down.
Exactly. You know? And that's where I don't mind take that. In where it feels like it fits, you know, and that's why I said, like, when you're building a theme park and you're just like, oh, look at you, oh, look, I got the Ferris wheel, I got the pirate ride, oh, look, I got my little ghost Halloween-y section over here, and then somebody just comes and wipes it all away. You're like, oh, great, thanks.
Thanks.
You know, it just doesn't fit. You know,
thanks.
You know?
I hate it.
But if you go to a game of like, you know, Evil Boss 3000, and you're like, you know,
or Magic the Gathering, or Pokemon, or any of these.
Exactly.
You know, you're going to be combative. You know.
Yeah. I suppose take that works best on a two-player game, because then you both know. The problem with having multiplayer take that games is that there's always a risk that someone's going to get the rough end of the stick. Really, someone's going to get ganged up on, and it won't be me,
even when nobody's doing it.
I'll be so angry that I'll scare everyone off from doing it. I once came second in a game of Dominant Species, purely through sulk, through the power of sulk. I became so unhappy that no one dared do anything unpleasant to me, and so they left me alone to do my little thing in Dominant Species.
There's an entire cartoon through that called He-Dan and the Power of Grey Sulk.
Exactly.
I have the power. I'm not paying those prices. I have power.
But
and then
you can get that. You can get that, like you said, where like in a 4-player game and it's got take that in it, and one person, they're not even being targeted. It just always seems to end up with them. You know, for whatever reason, they're the person that gets the, you know, the rough end of the wedge, you know, kind of thing. And it's it does suck in the right. If it's used well, it's brilliant. If it's used poorly, it just ruins a game. You know?
I'll tell you what else happened at Airecon, seeing as we're on the topic, is Mr. Gary King won the raffle, which was pretty impressive, considering, I don't know if anyone's ever seen the prize at Airecon, but what they do is they get donations from all sorts of different companies and things, and then they split these into lots, and I think there was about 8 lots this time, and each lot contains about £1,000 worth of games, roughly.
Yeah, we reckon,
if not a bit more.
reckon somewhere between 700 and £1,000.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. And Gary won it, which was pretty impressive, and a lot of trouble for him. At least he was driving.
Did you hear about the fiasco of him getting them back to his hotel?
No. What happened?
So
I knew I should have given him a lift. So that's my fault.
I also wish I had done as well, but to be fair, I couldn't have got them in my car because the stuff that was in my car. But so we went outside, got his stuff outside, and I was waiting outside with him while he called a taxi. He said, "Oh, he said, what are you doing for the rest of the night?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to go meet some other people." He said, "Well, go on, you leave me. Taxi's on the way." I said, "Okay, cool. I'll see you tomorrow." So eventually I see him tomorrow, and I said, "Oh, you got it all back." He said, "Well, it turns out Harrogate doesn't have Uber, so that didn't happen." Then he eventually found a taxi. Taxi turned up, didn't have space in the car, so he had to pay for him to piss off. and then he carted all the stuff back into the hall. All the time this is pissing it down with rain. He carted it back into the hall, got somebody to look after it at the ticket desk, walked the 25 minutes back to his hotel, got his car, and brought it all the way back and picked the stuff up and go back. I should have.
I feel guilty.
I say at the end of the day, that is the price you pay for winning 750 quid to the grand.
So what did he win?
It's the balance of the world. He won, off the top of my head, there was sort of all singing, all dancing, Castles of Burgundy with like the train pack, a game out then. I think Terracotta Army was in there, Moonrakers in there, Veiled Fate was in there, some weird Tokyo sidekick, I'd never heard of it or seen it, but that was quite a reasonable sized box. Fort, some Dark Souls miniatures which he was going to give to his next door neighbour who's a really big Dark Souls fan.
Wow.
Codenames, which he's going to give somebody for Christmas, and a whole bunch of other little ones.
I saw somebody won like.
It was a bloody good set.
I saw somebody won like all of Mythic Battles.
Yeah.
Well, that mythic. Well, the funny thing was, Mike the Pillock Pool.
Yeah.
He waited at the table while we went to go to the raffle draw. So I had his tickets.
Yeah.
And I knew the people who also won that Mythic Battle. It was a very lovely couple from Wales, and they won with red 296. I had in my hand Mike's red 295.
Oh.
And I said to him, you didn't bid on Mythic Battles, did you? And he was like, "Yeah, I did." And I was like, oh, shit. So that could well have been that ticket was in that bucket, but it didn't win. But
it didn't work.
But when I was literally looking at it, it's like, oh my god, he's about to bloody win it, kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I that's why I put all my tickets. I was quite annoyed I didn't win that. There was two Mythic Battles one. There was the Norse. There was a Norse slot as well, and I know the chap who won that Norse slot as well. So
did you?
Yeah, he's from Huddersfield. He's a Huddersfield gamer.
Speaking of Mythic Battles. Speaking of Mythic Battles, Mr. Simpson.
Somebody sent me a link at like 11:30 at night.
Somebody was.
You.
Myself.
Sent a link saying, "Oh, here's something off," and it was a massive discount off of the core game Pantheon and the Kickstarter stretch goals. And
we didn't realise it was the stretch goals at the time.
Didn't realise it was the stretch goals at the time.
When I sent you the link, I didn't think it was.
But the only thing I'll say is it took a little bit longer. It took a little bit longer than expected to kind of arrive, but you can't look a gift horse in the mouth. No. I kind of emailed a passive-aggressive email saying, "So when's this arriving?" But the interesting thing is it had the actual sticker on it for how much it was, and it was well over. It was well over double of what I actually paid for it. So I'm very, very happy. It's very, very cellophaned up, and it's got all the stretch goals.
Was it Mox in a Hole?
Yes.
That it came from?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't understand how this company is still in business. So almost all of my Star Wars Legion and most of my Mantic Dead Zone stuff has come from this site, because every now and then they just go, "Oh, here's a big discount on Atomic Mass Game stuff and Mantic," and like I've been getting like the leaders from Star Wars Legion that are usually like anywhere between like 15 and 18 quid each.
Yeah.
For like a 5 or 6 quid each.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
What website's this?
ridiculous.
Come on, say that again.
It's called
Duck-
Mox
Ducks-
in the Hole.
Mox in the hole.
Mox,
How do you spell-
MOX in the hole.
Right.
Mox in the hole. It takes a
Is it
lot.
all
It takes a bit of
plastic?
lot.
It's
Takes
it's
longer than
actually
expected.
it's a store in Edinburgh.
I know.
It
I was
is.
always like, I was
Yeah.
always like, why don't you just come over to my house,
Just come in for a cup of tea.
come along, get a cuppa, and bring it with you? It was kind of like
But
one
like
of
I
those
was getting
things.
like, I was getting the Firefight sets, which is the next game up from Dead Zone in their sci-fi world.
Yeah.
Like the starter, the faction sort of starter sets, which are like 75, I think, or 85 quid from Mantic. I was picking them up for like 35 quid from Mox in the Hole, and I was like, it's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous,
It's,
and I don't know,
you know.
how they end up doing it. You know,
I think there's one of these things that you end up. It's like getting rid of board games for space. I think you've paid your money, you've paid your
Yeah.
cost price for it. It's ending up sitting there. It's not shifting. Oh, you could sit around for like the next 6 months, and you need one lucky customer to come in and say, "I'm going to drop this," or they're going to buy it online. And I think with Mythic Battles, it was bad timing because Ragnarok's just been fulfilled, which means people are going to be using their money on that instead. So I do have it. It's huge. I must say, hats off to them. The way it was wrapped and everything was just. It was, it was
bubble wrapped inside and
absolutely
everything.
beautiful. Kind of like opened it up because you kind of like, oh well, let's see. Hopefully it'll not be in every special, but it was wrapped immaculately and it came around and it was absolutely not. It was an absolutely wonderful form.
I've had it once where they were a bit slow as well. But most of the time they're fine.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I think the trouble is every now and then they have these massive sales, and they just go, "Oh, here's everything at freaking cost price." So it takes a while to get stuff out the door when it's like that, and it is like.
I think
probably
it's a
2 or
normal
3
discount.
blokes
You don't
in
realise
a store,
there's
you
tons
know.
of all these groups going about, and as soon as like somebody puts something on special offer, it'll be hitting the groups,
Exactly.
and everybody will be going in and ordering, and all the mail order they were expecting, they weren't going to be expecting. I didn't go to Airecon. I have been playing a couple of games quite recently.
No one's interested.
I know that. I'm going to talk about them anyway,
Okay.
if that's okay with you.
I'll allow it.
Oh, you'll allow it. Oh, that's nice. It's nice that you're taking over.
How gracious.
I'm so gracious of you. Played a bit of Star Wars Unlimited. You're talking about Take That. It's okay so far. It's fine.
Which one's that? Which one's Star Wars Unlimited?
Star Wars-
new
amongst the-
Star Wars
new.
card game.
It's
I don't know. There's so many new Star
it's
Wars. bloody
March's
stuff.
TCG Star Wars because there's going to probably be a new one in April. It's okay.
Oh, I remember I had an argument with somebody on Facebook about it because they were saying it was going to be I don't know. This is going to be the next big thing, and I'm saying no, it's not.
It's
For a year.
It's going to be fine for a
Maybe.
year.
Well, that's it, yeah.
You know, it's going to be amazing.
So, I wasn't dismissing you. Sorry, Richard. Yeah.
It's-
It just annoyed me that they were giving it so much hype. It's like, people aren't as excited about Star Wars stuff as they used to be. I'm afraid.
Well, yeah, but also I actually don't trust a CCG, TCG, however you want to call it, in the hands of Fantasy Flight.
No.
No.
And even they've shown that they've not been trustworthy with Star Wars ones in the past as well.
Yeah, I don't think they'll market it, push it properly in the TCG, CCG sense, and then when it doesn't do as well as when it doesn't do Lorcana,
Yeah.
Yes.
basically, which it already hasn't done.
Yes.
I haven't heard of people having fights in the queues for Star Wars Unlimited, which there was literally fights in the queues for Lorcana, and queues, convention halls long. So it hasn't done that, and they'll drop it because they go, oh, fuck, it's not.
Yeah, like they dropped,
Squillions.
They dropped Netrunner, didn't they? They just were like, all right, we're not having any more Netrunner, and everyone's like, hang on, it's got a huge base. You could update
It's got a really
and
good,
release new,
solid fan base. Yeah.
and we're just gonna like do you over and hand you over to somebody else who's now kind of reproducing it. It's very kind of, my only issue is with it, right, is Luke versus Vader, and Vader is, to me, is very, very overpowered because he's the main character, but one of the characters he plays alongside is the Emperor, and the Emperor hits more than what Vader does. Whereas you've got, like, say, Luke Skywalker, who does do a decent amount of damage, and then they've got Leia in there, and Leia is literally like, she's a 2-2, so she's got a 2 attack and a 2 defense, and I'm just like, hang on, that doesn't make any sense. And then they bring Solo in, and Han Solo's in it, and he's like a 4-5 or something like that. But there seems to be, there doesn't seem to be a way of coming back from it. It just seems a bit kind of unbalanced to me, and I'm not 100% sure. I'm willing to jump into it, but again, it's like, if it's like, they seem to have this thing with starter decks. It's like, my opinion is you should be able to buy a starter deck, have a jolly good time, and then that encourages you to go ahead and buy other cards. Whereas with this, it's kind of like a bit more kind of, me and my son played it, and we kind of went, yeah, it's okay. We'll maybe get some more. I don't know. We'll think. But I was in the town today. I was in Waterstones where I got the starter kit, and they still got the pre-release boxes on sale. Yeah. They've not sold them. It's not like they've been flying out the door. I've seen Lorcana seems to just be going crazy. They just decided to have. I don't know how they're doing it, but they've got it in Tesco's and stuff like that. It's ridiculous. Even the new stuff, and it's really, really easy to get.
Both my local supermarkets, yeah. And when I saw that, I wondered. I thought, will Fantasy Flight be wise enough to get this into places like supermarkets and mainstream places? You know,
I don't know.
Clearly, they haven't.
I asked. I'll be honest with you. I asked. Because I went into Game, because obviously everybody's going into Game at the moment to see if they can pick.
I tried to go to Game, and it shut down.
It's probably in your local Sports Direct.
Sports Direct, yeah.
That's where mine is. It's in the corner
we've got
behind a load of sweatshirts. Yeah.
No, we've got a separate one, and it seems to be 90% toys, because they've stopped kind of taking in trade-ins now.
Yeah.
So they're only doing kind of like brand new physical games, and they're not accepting kind of any trade-ins, which I'm assuming they're moving their business model completely away from physical media eventually, which is a bit sad. But I was in there, and they didn't have Star Wars Unlimited there, which is crazy because they literally are selling an entire wall of Star Wars Lego, an entire wall of Star Wars toys and everything like that, as well as kind of like all the other kind of Star Warsy stuff that they have, and they didn't have Star Wars Unlimited. And then I asked them behind the counter, and they were like, it's not even on. We usually have a list of stuff to expect that's coming in, because obviously every week they get like stock rotations and display rotations and what they're meant to be putting out, and it's not even on there. So they've not even got it in Game. Whereas you turn around to the right, and there's an entire display of Disney Lorcana there, which has got all the sets and the card sleeves and everything like that. So I don't know what the hell they're playing at the moment. It doesn't make any kind of sense to me.
Well, Fantasy Flight aren't big anymore, are they? That's the thing. So
they're just a subsidiary of Asmodee. They lost all of their, the thing of Fantasy Flight. Yeah, when Asmodee bought them, they lost all of the. I mean, this Fantasy Flight used to do some amazing stuff. I was such a fanboy of most of what they did. But yeah, I haven't cared about a Fantasy Flight release. I can't remember what the last thing I got that was a Fantasy Flight game.
I'm still buying. Well, not actually.
Sorry, Marvel Champions. Yeah, Marvel Champions.
Marvel Champions.
But I haven't bought any of that for a while.
No, mainly because I keep giving you them. But
yeah, because you keep buying 2 and forgetting about it and just giving it to me.
Keep buying the second pack of something I've already got. But yeah, that's a good game. But I've got enough now, game. I think.
Yeah,
and they're scraping the barrel of heroes as well. So I don't need any more.
In defence of Fantasy Flight, when it comes to Marvel Champions, they have not mucked about. I mean, like they've put out characters that I'd be like, Jesus Christ, I didn't expect them to get a deck of their own kind of thing.
Yeah.
They really have pushed it and gone for it, which is great, And
they've done quite a sensible thing, which they maybe should have done with Netrunners. They appear to have slowed down the releases of Marvel Champions, but not stopped them. And I think as it's waning in popularity, which is inevitable, it will wane in popularity because there's no meta, because it's a cooperative game. So you don't. There's no point in getting power creep, which is what usually keeps these these games going because you're not playing against somebody else that you're annoyed that they've got the latest deck over. I reckon most Marvel Champions people play it solo anyway. That's certainly how I play it.
Solo or 2 players is the only way I will play Marvel Champions.
I think it's one of these games where you set a nice cup of tea, sit down, play yourself a couple of rounds of Marvel Champions. My neighbour's got it, and he's like, he's got it all. I think he's one of these people. He's not played an awful lot of it, and I'm kind of threatening to go round to his house and show him a good time. I think pretty soon because he's got all Marvel.
It's quite a collectible game.
Yeah,
it is. But it's quite easy to collect it.
It's quite lovely though, isn't it? I mean, it does look.
Yeah, no. I got caught in a trap of buying it even though I'm not playing it much because I'm like, well, it's only 15 quid for another pack, so it's not going to break the bank. So you just get it out of the pack and then you think.
And even the when they do the next like set, and it'll be like the first of the X-Men ones, and it'll be like 2 or 3 heroes that you like, or even it's only usually a couple of heroes. Then it's like 3 baddies, and then you're like, well, okay. So I've got Wolverine and I've got like Rogue, but I haven't got and I haven't got So I better get at least them. So I've got a decent little X-Men set, kind of thing, So they definitely they played the game very well in that front, But it's also those sort of the box expansion ones are like 25 quid or whatever. They're relatively inexpensive. So
they're 40 quid now.
Are they?
Yeah, and I also think that they're running out of heroes, and they've got the same problem that they've got with the Star Wars. They'll be playing a lot for these IPs, and they're IPs that are losing steam on a broader popular culture way.
I wonder if Fantasy Flight regret dropping Games Workshop when that license came up for bid again, because I think they were at that point where Games Workshop, the license agreement they had was coming to an end, and Star Wars was just going gangbusters. They had X-Wing and Armada flying out the door. They had Netrunner doing really well. They'd just taken on like Legend of the Five Rings, and I think they just sort of went, I think we can just. We've run the well dry on Games Workshop, but actually then Games Workshop's had quite another sort of hiatus of doing, really kind of coming back into the forefront and stuff. And I think they probably, especially with the role playing side of things, which I don't know. I think Fantasy Flight still do role playing games, don't they?
I don't know. I don't. As I said, I know that stuff that they come out with is like kind of few and far between. I don't see them.
But I know that the latest Games Workshop role playing games, whoever it is that does them now, have been really popular. And I've heard a lot of people, like clamoring to get them. And really liking what's, Fantasy Flight could have been the ones doing that. And. Yeah, I think I wonder if there is some level of regret in dropping that license. I think it's one they probably should have kept hold of had it not been too inexpensive.
I think I still remember that day where it was like, I remember one week seeing Fury of Dracula 3rd edition or something being like 20 quid or something somewhere, and me going, I might take a punt on that because I like Letters from Whitechapel. And then the news coming out about them kind of losing the kind of just all of a sudden culling that from the collection, and it all of a sudden going for like 60, 70 quid, and it was just like, what kind of it all of a sudden became kind of very, very rare. And I wonder if the same thing's going to happen with the Funko kind of game kind of range, because they're all disappearing. We're not going to see any more, or very unlikely to see kind of any more kind of games from them, which is unfortunate because they were a good little studio. Speaking of good little studios, well, maybe not good little studios, maybe Lucky Studios. Talking about Lucky Duck Studios, actually. I've been playing Divinus or Divinus, which was on GameFound not too long ago.
It was?
Mr. Pryor, yes. And it's one of these kind of hybrid. Lucky Duck seem to be going down the line. They've got a very strong range of kind of like hybrid app-based games, and I've been kind of there or thereabouts. They're kind of, their crime games are okay. I found it's like a bit of a
I love Chronicles of Crime. I really like Destinies. I think Divinus uses some of the aspects of Destinies, doesn't it?
Divinus Divinus uses the aspects in that basically it's like a mixture of almost Carcassonne and Charterstone, actually. In that you basically you're playing a difference between kind of like the Norse gods and the I think the Roman gods, and you have like you have like a grid of kind of like 12 tiles. On one side you've got tiles that have kind of like shrines to them. On the other side you have tiles that have kind of various kind of I guess kind of affinities with different types of gods, basically. And what you're doing is it's quite clever. You've kind of got like, they're all numbered from they're numbered from 1 to 12. You basically get a handful of like 5 dice, and what you do is you roll your dice, and then based on the numbers that you roll, you can then take some of those dice in order to exchange the dice with a tile. And then you take the tile and you add it into your own little kind of tableau. So you're building up like your own little kind of Carcassonne area of tiles. And you got to like match things together, make sure that kind of mountains match kind of mountains and seas match kind of seas. And then the aim is you got to build like a 4x4 grid, but you're aiming based on the round that you're playing, based on the requirements of the game for that particular round. You're trying to build like the biggest area with mountains, or you're trying to build the biggest number of areas with mountains, or you're trying to have the largest number of Roman helmets, or the largest number of like Norse helmets, Viking helmets and stuff like that. And it's all contained within the app as to when you've got certain conditions you've got to fulfill. So you've got kind of like key objectives up the top, and you fulfill a key objective, you gain that key objective, but then you refer to the app. Now, the reason I say Charterstone is because basically when you start off with the rulebook has got huge blank sections in it. So you're given, it's almost like the full games, you've been given the full game, and then everything that's interesting has been kind of like stripped out. And so as you play the game and as you fulfill certain criteria, you then refer to a sticker sheet, and you'll actually be physically putting stickers on the tiles in order to increase the number of helmets that they have, or adding on special conditions to some of the templates, or you'll be actually changing some of the board itself. And a lot of the time you'll be adding new rules into the rule book. And it's quite clever, but there's a huge barrier at the very, very beginning of the game, because it almost starts it from far too basic rules, in my opinion. So basically, it's just basically saying, okay, roll your dice. Right, I've rolled a dice. I've rolled a 3 and a 6. Okay, so what you can do is you can either take the island that's on number 3, you can take the island that's on number 6, or you could take the island that's on number 9. So you do that. And then, oh, look, I've just fulfilled this condition. And then what you find is you fulfill a condition and you click on the app to say I've fulfilled this condition, and then it says okay. And at some point in the game, I literally needed to stop playing the game, and I spent like half an hour adding in stickers into the rule book, to the point where my son, youngest who I was playing with it, who isn't a big board game fan but kind of likes the simplistic time, he walked away and did something else because he couldn't be bothered kind of waiting around for me to fix all these stickers.
Wow. That's
However, see, once you get going, it's lovely. It works really well. It's really, really clever. And it's the best thing about the app is you get to the end of the game, and you know how you have all these like scoring conditions where it's like, okay, who's got the most number of this? Who's got the most number of that? Who's got the most number of this? And normally you've kind of figure out who's kind of got the most of something, and then you have to kind of write it all down and figure it all out. It does it all in the app for you. So you just press, okay, who's got the most of this? Who's got the most of that? And it kind of works out all the stores, and it's quite clever. It's pretty cool because there's like, it's a lot of it almost seems like legacy based. So as you are adding stickers to the tiles and you decide where you're adding stickers to the tiles, the ultimate aim is just like in Charterstone. Once you've gone through like all the 12 chapters, you'll end up with your own version of the game. But as I say, I don't know I don't know how many people are going to get to like game 3, 4, or 5 and go, oh, for goodness sake, more stickers in this rule book. You know, and so it's kind of it's kind of interesting. It's kind of fun, but yeah, I don't know. Have you guys? I mean, I know you say Chronicles of Crime. Look, have you played any of these games, Dan, with the kind of the apps and stuff like that?
I played Chronicles of Crime. I really enjoyed it. I tried playing it with Cora, and it's actually quite inappropriate for kids.
There's only a few, that are okay.
Other than, I mean, obviously the murders, and you know, depending on where your line is. But my line is pretty, you know, I'm pretty open with all sorts of stuff. But there's quite a lot of drugs and, you know, prostitution, all that kind of stuff. Oh, okay, fair enough. Won't play this. I enjoyed it, but it felt more like an activity than a game. But that's because it's a co-op as well. So basically, it was a puzzle, and I really enjoyed the puzzle. But I'm not sure I'd want to play it on a games night. I'd want to play it on a Chronicles of Crime night. If that makes any sense. I'd probably on my own.
I do have a bit. I'll play with my wife. She loves it. She thinks she loves crime dramas and stuff like that. And Elliot was kind of, as soon as he did the thing where he put the thing on to look around the room with the phone and the glasses thing, he was just like, this is amazing, you know, kind of thing. We really like it, but it's absolutely an activity. I have played it with the lads and we've enjoyed it, but it's not one I would regularly go, oh, should we play this for game night kind of thing.
And when you play it with somebody else, you go, oh, now I've got to discuss it with them instead of just doing what I want to do. You know what I mean? So
I think that's a you problem, Dan.
Yeah,
not a Chronicles of Crime problem.
That's a me and co-op games maybe. But other than that, I do have a slight problem with app-based games, and I know that the great and the good Tom Vassell will disagrees with me on this one. But I've had a number of app games, 2 that I've really enjoyed: Drop Mix and Lego Life of George, and they both the apps have stopped working. They're both no longer supported.
Yeah,
and which is fine because most games have got a very short life anyway. Let's face it, most games you only play 3 or 4 times before moving them on anyway. That's been my experience. But those 2 were games that I would like to get out and play again and again and again, and both are completely inaccessible now because the app's gone. Now, you complain about that on Board Game Geek, and someone always says, oh, well, if you get the emulator and put it onto an Android phone, it's like, well, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So,
no.
So you can stick that up your what's it. But so I do think when you buy an app game, you've got to bear in mind that there's a shelf life to this more than other games. And if you're buying it with that in mind, then that's absolutely fine. And as I say, majority of board games, basically, you know, you can say you're not going to be able to play it in 8 years' time. Well, I don't think I'm playing anything. I'm not playing Flashpoint Fire Rescue I'm not playing much that I used to play 8 years ago. There's a few things that I did. So you don't want an app game to become your very favourite game. Because it might, because the odds are, well, it is going to go. It is going to go. Just is.
The only thing I don't like you said, I don't care about the app aspect of it, and go into it knowing it's like this has one day I'm just going to go, bollocks, this is all useless now.
Yeah.
The only thing that slightly pangs me about that is that if one of those goes like to be fair, Destinies, me and Elliot really like Destinies because it's kind of like it's like a bit, it's like choose your own adventure up 2 rungs up the ladder. It's really good fun stories and it all works really well. And I would sort of hate for him to really, really, really love that, and then in the attic one day when he's clearing out the house or something, and he suddenly finds, it's, oh God, I remember when I used to play this with Dad, and he just won't be able to.
Yeah.
That kind of, because I've still got games like that from when I was a kid, and I've played them with my kids and stuff, and they're fine. They're good little family games and they work still fine. But just with those little things like that, but I mean, we are talking a niche within a niche within a niche. This is the first worldiest of first world problems. But exactly. It's a shame that is, what will eventually happen is that they'll never, that game will never get the pang of nostalgia because it won't live long enough to be nostalgic and experienced, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is just
Yeah. I think the idea with Divinus is that you get to a point where you've got your own game that you're not really having to rely on the app as much, except for the kind of the scoring.
That's good.
And at that point, you can just kind of play it. I think that's it's a fair point. I mean, they do say that you don't need to play a lot of the games online, that you kind of download it. But again, let's face it, if you go into like your Google Store or Apple Store history and try and download games that you first got years and years ago, a lot of the time it's, as you say, it just says it's kind of completely incompatible, which is no.
Does Paper Toss still work on the iPhone?
Good. Does it?
Yeah.
Did it ever?
I mean, it costs money to keep it up to date. I mean, you can't blame anybody for doing that.
Yeah.
No. And some of these companies just go out of business. They just disappear. I mean, they're just not there. I mean, and it's, as I say, and the way the things are going. I mean, you're lucky like somebody like Funko hadn't kind of released a whole pile of app-based games, because stuff that you bought 6 months ago, you're like, oh well, I guess that's not gonna work anymore. Which is all good. Gonna have to wrap things up, I'm afraid. Ladies and jelly spoons. Yes.
We just got started.
I know we just got started, but we've also got finished, because it's like almost.
You go. Me and Dan will carry on.
Yeah. We'll do it. You can just edit it at the end.
Yeah. No. It's actually been a delight. I mean, I don't think have you spoken about board games this much on a podcast?
How dare you? How dare you? No, probably not. Not for a while. Not since the last big con I've been to.
I've been listening to Spadulically Bred, and I must say this is kind of like, this must have been a new thing, kind of talking kind of board games. But
shocking.
I mean, for those who aren't, I'm just going to say, for those who aren't aware, and I doubt there's people who aren't aware, Sporadically Bored is a sporadic podcast where
very sporadic these days with Mike Delisio.
That Mike Delisio, just part timer.
Yeah,
that's what I say.
Yeah.
They do a wonderful series of podcasts, which is all about whatever they kind of feel when they rock up and talk about whatever they feel. So it can be board games, it can be general chat. It's all very casual. It's obviously,
it'll usually start with whatever parking thing or driving issue Dan has had. That's often an opening gambit of a Sporadically Bored episode. I went through a bus lane. Did you ever get that ticket for the bus?
No, I never got the ticket for the bus lane.
There you go. You got away with it. There you go.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah.
Wanted criminal Dan Hughes. That's it. That's how
I do talk about driving back from Airecon in the most recent episode, which it hasn't dropped yet because I'm still editing it. But yeah, because I'm an old man now, and so suddenly I'm scared of driving at night. Or driving at night causes me more anxiety than it used to do.
I just don't like it. I don't drive. I see working from home, I just don't drive at all. And it's like my wife's like, well, we're going on holiday in July, and we're going to Centre Parks, and she's still expecting me to drive, and I'm like, I don't think you understand. I don't drive really that much. So, when I get in a car nowadays, I'm like, I'm expected, because I used to drive obviously all the time back and forward to work doing the big commute, and I don't do that now. So me getting behind the wheel now, it's like, I'm not as good a driver as I probably used to be, because I'm just kind of out of practice. Yeah. So if people have listened along tonight, Mr. Hughes, and they want to listen to more of your dulcet tones, where can we find you on the internet webs, Mr. Hughes?
If they want to consume any of I'm going to do all my plugs, if that's all right.
Do that.
So I've got a podcast, Sporadically Bored, and you can find that wherever you get podcasts from. Spotify these days is the big place to get your podcasts. Apple have dropped the podcasting ball, I think.
Yes.
Anyway, Sporadically Bored is on all the various things. That's myself and Mike Delisio from the Dice Tower, and we roughly monthly we release a podcast, but it's much better than this one. Then the other thing that I do is I've got a game out called Cora Quest. Cora Quest is a dungeon crawler for families, and there's also an expansion which is just on its way out, as I was complaining about before. It's fulfilled to all the Kickstarter backers, but it's in Barnes & Noble now. It's Cora Quest, So you can find that. You can find that at Barnes & Noble if you're in America. Yeah.
But Star Wars Unlimited's not in Barnes and Noble.
No, it's not.
Probably is, but
It probably
if it's in Waterstones, it probably is. But so that's very exciting. And then Core Quest Keep on Questing, the expansion should be hitting shops anytime soon. And finally, I have a book that I've written called Annabelle and the Sorcerer's Spoon, which is a children's book for 7 and up, between 7 and 10, really, for kids to read themselves or for you to read to them. Illustrated by the wonderful Gary King, who is also a winner of the Harrogate Airecon raffle, previously mentioned. So you can get that from Amazon if you so wish. And that's all my
There
plugs.
you go. There we go. I mean, what we'll do is, as normal, we will make sure we put the links in the show notes so that we've got loads notes to show. If you want to listen more to us, go to Spotify, search for We're Not Wizards, you'll find us. If you want to listen to our previous episodes, go to we'renotwizards.com. And if you want to read some of the words that we've written together for reviews and previews and all fun, then you can go to we'renotwizards.co.uk. But it's now time to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from the rather wonderful, rather fantastic Mr. Dan Hughes. Say goodbye, Dan.
So insincere. Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from a man who sends you tempting links at 11:30 at night. It's Mr. Luke Pryor. Say goodbye, Luke. And it's a goodbye.
Bye-bye.
It's a goodbye from me. And until the next time, stay safe, roll sixes, make something awful, and goodbye.
Bye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.